Alright guys, so here's what we need for today's build. You're going to need some skewers. You can get these at Walmart in a 100-pack for like $1. Some square matchsticks, something to mark measurements with, a cutting tool, some sandpaper, any type of glue. I'm using contact cement, gray, I have black and white and I have to mix them, and brown or whatever color you want the pole to be. So here are the materials and let's get on with the build. So first things first. Firstly, we're going to need to measure out the pole and the crossbeam. So in real life, the telephone poles can range anywhere from 20 to 90 feet tall. I'm doing 30 scale feet, and so that comes out to about 4 1/4 inches. Anyway, the big thing I want you guys to realize here is that the point, which will be going into the ground, is going to add an extra 1/2 inch. So I didn't cut it out to 4 1/4 inches, I cut it out to 4 3/4 inches. So did that, and the cross beam is going to be around 5 to 6 feet long. And so without further ado, I'll give these a cut. Alright. That was nice and easy. Skewers can be kind of pesky sometimes, so just be aware of that. And then for the matchstick, just kind of give it a clean cut there. And now we have the 2 cut pieces that we need. Alright, so the next step is fairly easy. All you have to do is take the end that you just cut off and sand it down until it's flat. So that's nice and flat. Wasn't too much I had to do there. And then same thing with the matchstick. Something I also like doing sometimes is giving the pole some grain. And what you do is you just kind of run it across, and you do that several times. And it gets, sometimes they have like a glossy coating on them, and it also gets that coating off. So you can do that if you'd like. You don't have to, but I like doing it. So yeah. Okay, so the next step is going to be to glue. Here I have my contact cement, and as you can see, I have the butt end of the telephone pole that we just cut out on either side. The part that you cut off, you just split in half and you put it on either side of the telephone pole, which is in the middle. And this comes in handy for keeping the crossbar level when you glue it on. So we'll just do that real quick. Grab some of this contact cement, take a dab on the toothpick. Now I have a dab of contact on the end of this toothpick here. All I'm doing is putting it on the part of the telephone pole that I want the crossbar to stick, near the top. And I just eyeball it to center the crossbeam. I mean, you can measure the center of it and mark it and whatnot if you'd like, but I kind of just eyeball it. I'm not too worried about it. It's a small enough detail. And so now that's on there. It's kind of being held by either side, like I was saying. It kind of keeps it on level with the center telephone pole. And now we just have to wait for the glue to dry. Alright guys, so what you're going to do next is you're going to measure, that's between 1/4 and 1/2 inch. And what these are going to be are the diagonal supports for the crossbar and the main telephone pole. So I usually measure, like I was saying, about between 1/4 inch and 1/2 inch. And when you cut them, make sure you have a 45-degree angle on both of them on one side and have them be a straight cut on the other. So on this one, that's the 45-degree cut. Turn it over and that's a flat cut. And the reasoning for this is when you glue them on, you want to be able to have it go flush against the pole where the 45-degree angle is going to be glued, and then the straight edge is going to be on the crossbar. So I'll get those glued on real quick and I'll show you guys. So as you guys can see, I've cut the styrene pieces the little angle pieces there, and I have applied them to the telephone pole. What I did was I glue the back of the telephone pole. I glue the crossbar itself, not the piece. I glue the crossbars, and I'll stick one end of the piece on, and once it's firmly on, I'll kind of push it into the telephone pole, which is the side the 45-degree angle cut is also adhered to. And so that part's kind of finicky and tricky. There's no certain way to do it. So I mean, if you come up with your own way, do it, because that's kind of a tricky little part there. Anyway, you just wait for those to dry, and then we'll move on to the next step. Alright guys, so the last part we're going to need to cut out of the styrene is the wire transfers, and these are the little gray things that you see on telephone poles that actually hold the wires. And all I did for that was I took some styrene, the same styrene strip we made the crossbars out of, and I just cut a tiny little, almost like a square box out. And once you do that, you just cut, I mean for mine I did 3. Depending on how big your pole is and how many crossbars you have, you can do more. Really all I did was cut them out like that. And yeah, so now we have the 3 little pieces there. Okay, so now we're on to painting. What we're going to do here is, the telephone pole is going to be this brown right here that I've already splurted out, and then I've had to mix the black and the gray, or the black and the white to make the gray. For these little pieces, they're extremely hard to keep track of. So what I do is I just kind of pick them up with my finger and just stick them right in there and roll them around. And then I put them down. Oh, see? There we go. Alright, and that'll dry. And the other one has actually already gotten stuck on my finger, so I'll just dab it in. Like so. And set it down to dry. So that's what you do for those. That's my way of doing it. It's just a lot easier. And then for the telephone pole, it's just, I mean, regular old paint. You just gotta grab a brush and start painting away. I don't lay on the paint too thick on the pole, thicker than that, but I don't know, you know, that's about as thick as I'll go right there, and that's to bring out the grain. Whenever you see telephone poles, there, you know, you always see random little grains and color variations, and I like keeping to that for prototypical purposes. But depending on what color the telephone pole is, you don't have to, and you don't have to in the first place if you don't want to. But yeah, it's just a little tidbit of information there. So you're going to paint the whole thing brown. I typically paint the crossbars brown as well, even though they're usually a different color. But they aren't too different of a color to make it noticeable, and they look good brown too. So I do that. Anyway, you just paint the whole brown, the whole pole, and we'll come back to it once everything's painted. Okay, so here we have all the painted pieces. What I do to adhere it all is take my dab of cement glue. Here I have the dab, and I will find the place where I want to put it, put the little gray things onto the telephone pole. So I'll put it right there, and then I'll just stick one on. Now this is kind of a tricky part. You kind of have to get used to just kind of finagle it in there, you know. It's not any one way to do it. And once it's on, you just kind of push it around, and there I have one on. I'm just going to do that to the central pole and to the other side, and then we'll have a telephone pole, folks. And there we have a completed telephone pole, folks. There you go. And you just make a bunch of these, and they're pretty much free. And I think they look pretty decent. So there you go. Hope you enjoyed.